the Isak and Newcastle situation. If you was at your job or wherever you was, would you allow your boss or the company to treat you a certain way? No, you wouldn't. So let's forget about the money situation. Let's talk about just humans. Let's just talk about people. Players really start understanding what player power is. So what's going on, my ballers, athletes and people? Welcome to another episode of Ball and Live. And this is episode 4. And this is the show which is all about football cultural conversations to empower the aspiring baller. And listen, man, if you guys are a person or if you are an athlete in another sport, this is something that might be able to empower and inspire you too. And on this episode, we're going to be getting into the PFA Awards, man. And should young players be looking at these personal awards as something to aspire to? We're going to be talking about Tijjani Reijnders and how his debut for Manchester City has put him on the map. I'm going to be giving my thoughts, but also it sparked a little conversation in me that I want to talk about, which is a career is built, and not everybody's going to be having the Messi or the Lamar Aaron start to their lifestyle when it comes to football. We're going to be talking about the Isak and Newcastle situation, and listen, it's getting messy. Both parties have released a statement, but I really want to get into player power and what player power actually is and what it looks like. But I also want to get into, should players be signing these long-term contracts? Listen, we've seen this so many times in football, and I'm just going to have my say on it on this episode. And last but not least, we have a new segment called Free Game. Now, this segment is all about me giving you guys the advice that I wish I had going through the academy system from 8 all the way till 19. I got the chance to play for West Ham. I got a chance to be an aspiring footballer, and so much knowledge that you get from going through that system. Trust me, I've got so much in my mind, and I'm here and willing to give it to you. But first of all, man, let's just start off with the PFA Awards. And should young players be looking at that and thinking to themselves, should we have these individual awards? Now, last night, listen, you have to say congratulations to Morgan Rogers, Young Player of the Year. You have to say congratulations to Mo Salah, the first player to ever win the PFA Player Award 3 times. Now, that's an achievement within itself. But the problem is that I find when we look at all of these awards shows like the Ballon d'Or or the FIFA Best Awards or even just the PFA Awards, right? We look at it and we think to ourselves, oh my God, I would love to win that one day. And there's nothing wrong with dreaming. I think players should be dreaming all the time. They should be having goals and all these types of things on their list. But I think we're forgetting that we're playing a team sport. And a lot of the time that you realize going through this football life, you realize that when it comes to these awards are a byproduct of your performance, right? They're a byproduct of the player you have become, the season you have had. I don't think it's always about, oh my God, I want to win this award, and now you gear everything around that season towards winning this award. I think that's kind of crazy if you ask me. We shouldn't be looking for things like that. I think as young players, and especially with the PFA Awards, and I really wanted to just start off with a light intro with this topic because so many times you hear the conversations about, like I said, the Ballon d'Or, FIFA Best, all these awards, and players can get kind of lost and then producing individual performances, which then, number one, harms the team, but also number two, it then harms the player itself. Now, when you look at any award, again, it's a byproduct of your performance. Your team is also included in helping you achieve that. Yes, it's your individual performances that get you there. Of course, it's the season you've had. But I think to sit there and as a young player to aspire to have an award, I'm not sure if it's something that is helpful, especially for an aspiring footballer. I don't think it's something that you should even be gearing towards. When you look at players who are winning these awards, okay, the Young Player of the Year award, that's somebody who's, Morgan Rogers is 23. Right. In the past, we've had winners that are all different ages under that sort of threshold. But for me personally, a young player should be just focused on games, repetition, putting in performances. And like I said, these are byproducts of these awards coming. However, I feel like as you start developing later on in your career, as like Mo Salah has, as he's hit those sort of heights, you start thinking to yourself, it's actually getting closer that I might be able to win these awards. So I'm not actually saying like not to have them as a thing, as a player, as something you shouldn't be striving to. I just think, number one, there's a time and a place when it comes to this. And also, especially with the PFA Awards being obviously last night, I think, again, a lot of young players are looking at that and probably going to be aspiring to want to win that. And as I said, let that be the goal, but don't let that be the overall thing you shift your season around, if that makes sense. So for me, it's like players, it's season over season is where your career is then built. And speaking of seasons over seasons and careers being built. I think we need to touch on Tijjani Reijnders' Man City debut, and honestly, I need to just give my thoughts on this guy. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. This guy has literally put his debut, and I actually think this is probably one of the best debuts I've ever seen in a long time from a player who's coming to the Premier League. I mean, we all remember Wayne Rooney's debut, but for the young players, I think this is going to be a debut that's going to stand out. And after his performance against Wolves, it made me kind of say, I want to know more about this guy. Like I said, I knew about him from last year. I also knew a little bit about him from when he was at AZ Alkmaar, but he was nowhere near the player he is now. Last year he was for AC Milan. He's put in a lot of performances, but before that, this guy was nowhere near the player we then see. So I went to go watch a few interviews, man, and this is what I advise a lot of young players to do: is go study the game, go look at what some of these players are doing, go look at the story behind them. And the story behind Tijjani is, for me, a story that most players are going to have. Like we did an episode a few episodes ago about, obviously, young players are not always going to have that beautiful start to their career. Not everyone's having that Messi start, the Lamine Yamal start to their career. Some players just have that career which is just built over time. Like you may not have the best start, but a lot of the lines you hear throughout life, a lot of the lines you hear throughout your career, especially like me going through the academy of West Ham, you kind of hear where you start isn't where you finish, right? And it's true. And I think too many young players get caught up in the mindset of where we start is everything, right? You look at, comparison and all these things. Your friends are playing for this club, that club. But when you look at the story of Tijjani Reijnders, it's like he started off and never got a contract at the age of 16, 17, 18. And I think when you look at those ages, number one, they are very important, very key ages. And he actually spent a whole year doing a job at a shopping market, like a whole year. And then it's after that, he ends up building his career. He gets signed by AZ Alkmaar. He spends multiple years there until he then gets his move to AC Milan. And his first season with AC Milan, let's be real, it was not the player we're seeing now or who we saw last season. It was a player who was technical. It was a player who, for me, was working on his game, getting there, but he was nowhere near the player you see now. Now he's 27. Now he's peaked. And one of the things that I start to realize and actually think, going through the academy, playing with certain players that I've played with or seen or come against, you start realizing there are players that peak early and there are players that also peak later. And as I said, a career is built, man. A career isn't something that you just, wake up one day and it's right in front of you. It's year after year of putting in the work. And his story is great. I mean, don't get me wrong. Some people like him, people will say that sometimes like players like him, are lucky. His father was a footballer. His brother's a footballer in Holland. So yes, he's come from a footballing family. However, there's a lot of players out there, even in non-league right now, looking in their position, people who are abroad or playing for a club that they don't want to play for, can look at this story and kind of go, if he can do it, so can I. So for me, it's a player that you look at, the story behind him, and you kind of got to, like I said, use this blueprint and study it. And when you study it, you realize careers are built. The guy's 27 years old. He's now hit the heights of Manchester City. And I think for me, when you're looking at a blueprint or you're building your plan as a player or you're trying to make something happen for you, I mean, these are the type of players you have to look at, and you kind of got to ask yourself, okay, is my story like the Lewis Skellies who come through Arsenal? Is my story going to be, a Lionel Messi, a Lamine Yamal? Or do I have the story of Tijjani Reijnders? And for me, again, this guy, overall box-to-box player, I actually think he's probably one of the most all-rounded midfielders. And when you watch his interviews, the one thing that stood out for me is that he's a player who understood his role. He's a player who understood the player he was trying to become. Too many of us want to start off as that player. And I think for me, he's, again, another one of those players that he's built his career. He started off saying, okay, like I said, please go watch the interview. It's actually an interview, one with Manchester City, and he's done another one with AC Milan. And on that, it begs to ask the question that, are we really stubborn, when we're going through these academies? Are we too ignorant potentially? And I'm just here to say, I think we need to kick the ignorance out of the way, because you can see in him, The way he speaks about football, the way he speaks about everything, because as you can see throughout his career, it's kind of like gone step by step by step. I think that season, the first one at AC Milan, he spoke about how he needs more goals. Like as a midfielder, he wasn't doing as well as he would like, and he knew that goals and assists and all these things should be added to his game. And then the next season, he comes back and he adds that to his game, adding that to the game. He's now done what he's done. Then he gets moved to Man City. So overall, man, I just wanted to touch on this story. I wanted to touch on the careers being built, and instead of always like thinking that you're going to pop out the womb like you're the best player in the world. And yeah, man, this is a player I'm looking forward to watching in the Premier League. I think he's going to be probably one of the star performers. I actually also think he's going to be one of the best signings of the Premier League. And if I'm an aspiring footballer looking at a blueprint, looking at a potential plan that I can maybe study and look at, and if I'm a midfielder, box to box, I think Tijjani Reijnders is someone that I would want to be looking at. So let's move on, man, because this topic I have been wanting to speak about for such a long time. It's the Isak and Newcastle situation. And the reason why I wanted to speak about this for such a long time is because I think right now you have media who are full of pundits and full of, other people who have their opinions and their say. And a lot of the time it's from a fan's perspective, right? And then you have the fans who are obviously Newcastle fans. You also have fans who are quote unquote fans of football. And then you just have them stupid ass trolls on social media absolutely talking a whole load of BS, like a whole load of BS. And this is something for me that if I'm a player and I'm looking at this situation, do you know how much players have gone through this? This is given, and this is reminding me of Harry Kane at Tottenham with Daniel Levy. This is reminding me of, people who want you to just shut your mouth and shut up. And like I said, both parties have put out a statement. Players need to really pay attention to certain things that happen in football. And too many times it's hard to do that when fans are having their say, media platforms and media personalities are having their say. But what about the player perspective and what actually goes from the player's angle? And I'm going to start off with Isak's statement, because Isak's statement for me is painting this picture a bit clearer, if you ask me. Now, I ain't here to choose sides, but what I am here to do is make sure that you guys are being able to take the right information so you guys can go in your careers and learn something for yourself. Isak's obviously put on his story. He was a part of the Team of the Year on the PFA Awards. And he's put on his story, I'm proud to be recognised by my fellow professionals with a place in the PFA Premier League team of the season for 24-25. First and foremost, I want to thank my teammates and everyone at Newcastle who has supported me along the way. I'm not at the ceremony tonight. With everything going on, it didn't feel right to be there. I've kept quiet for a long time while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made and the club has known my position for a long time. To now act as if these issues are only emerging is misleading. When promises are broken, trust is lost. The relationship can't continue. That's where things are for me right now and why change is in the best interest of everyone, not just myself. Now that's Alexander Isak's statement. I then want to read Newcastle's statement because I think this is absolutely hilarious. And I think for me, the one thing that fans and the one thing that some media platforms may not understand, or media personalities may not think of also when they're doing their job. And also, by the way, they're just doing their job. And I want this to be a thing where I'm not slating fans. Listen, you are allowed to have your emotions. You are allowed to feel how you feel. I'm just saying, as players, as aspiring footballers, you have to have the mindset, the eyes, and the perspective of a player. Because again, this may be you one day, and you might be in these types of situations one day. So Newcastle's statement goes a little something like this. We are disappointed to have been alerted to a social media post by Alexander Isak this evening. We are clear in response that Alex remains under contract and that no commitment has ever been made by a club official that Alex can leave Newcastle United this summer. We want to keep our best players, but we also understand players have their own wishes and we listen to their views. As explained to Alex and his representatives, we must always take into consideration the best interests of Newcastle United, the team and our supporters in all decisions. And we have been clear that the conditions of a sale this summer have not transpired. We do not foresee those conditions being met. This is a proud football club with proud traditions, and we strive to retain our family feel. Alex remains part of our family and will be welcomed back when he is ready to rejoin his teammates. When I'm looking at that, I'm sorry. The words that's being used, the way that statement has been put into play, I don't hear it. I'm sorry, I don't hear it. And this is why it's important to understand player power and why player power matters. Now, listen, do I think Isak's behavior is right? No, I don't. I think he should be a professional. I think he should go into training. And I think he's there to do a job. But the one thing that I'm seeing in this whole situation, and when you really unpack it, when you really look at it, right? Clearly, Newcastle want a certain number for Isak, right? They want a certain fee. Whatever that fee is up to Newcastle. But clearly, something was agreed. You can't say it's not. A player ain't going to sit here and a player isn't going to get emotional and a player isn't going to have outbursts and act like that if something was not put in play. Now, whether it's a Newcastle club official or if it's someone else who's a part of Newcastle, whatever it is, something has been promised to this guy. And we got to remember, we are not behind closed doors, right? We are not. So we do not know what's going on. But from my perspective, what I'm seeing is this as well. Newcastle have messed up by selling Callum Wilson. Their striker options are very limited. They're probably potentially could be looking at that and going, oh, we need a replacement for Isak. Cool, get it. And they're looking at Johan Wissa, which he's now at Brentford doing a similar thing that Isak's doing. And everybody in the media and everybody's looking at these players and they're saying their behaviour's this and they shouldn't be doing that. And listen, I agree for some part. But this is the part where I don't agree. Because it's crazy when clubs want to turn round and clubs want to be able to have their own say on players. Look at Manchester United, how they treated Garnacho, how they said to a certain amount of players, Marcus Rashford, etc., you are not a part of our plan, this, that, no matter what, push towards the side. Allowing Sancho to go, but he get dressed in a changing room somewhere. Where's the professionalism from the club there? Do you see it? No. When it comes to, again, like I said, Harry Kane and Tottenham, Daniel Levy was acting a certain way, and when he wants what he wants, he will get what he wants. Look, when it comes to Heung-min Son, sorry, you're no longer needed. So listen, when you're a player, and the reason why player power matters, right, is we are not just an employee of your club. We are somewhat an asset to your club. So if we're an asset to your club, listen, sales come through me. Fans sit on seats because of me. My career is just as important to this club as the club is to me. Now, there is no player that's bigger than the club because, as again, it's a team sport. However, let's keep the same energy. Let's make sure that all players are being treated the same. Let's make sure that all players and club are being treated fairly. This is your career. This is your life, right? You have to manage your career in the best way possible. And if you're seeing that certain things are not adding up and certain things are not right, listen to the words Isak is using. He's talking about trust. He's talking about when that's broken, how can you have a relationship anymore? Now, people are looking at that thinking, oh, brother, you earn X amount a week. I think it's £120,000 a week. Brother, if you was at your job or wherever you was, would you allow your boss or the company to treat you a certain way? No, you wouldn't. So let's forget about the money situation. Let's talk about just humans. Let's just talk about people. Let's just talk about a human standard between club and player. Because if you ask me, I think this is both their faults. But I think it's really important in this day and age that players really start understanding what player power is. When we look at this whole situation, it then opens up a bigger conversation. And it's the question and it's the conversation of should players be signing long-term contracts? When you look at these long-term contracts, I say it over and over and over again, you are locking yourself in to a position where somewhat these clubs can have their hand on you. Yeah, they got you by the short and curlies. Like they have you in somewhat of a position. Now, when you look at Isak's situation, my brother signed 6 years. Yeah, 6 years. If I'm a player and I'm looking at progressing my career, if I'm a player and I'm looking at Newcastle ain't going to be my be all and end all, I'm looking to progress. At whatever age he was when he signed, I think he was 22 when he signed. You do, in my eyes, in my opinion, and what I've seen, you do not sign 6 years. You do not. That you sign a 2 to 3 year deal maximum, because when you start going beyond all of those things, this is what happens. what we're seeing right now is what happens. Now, Newcastle is saying, well, listen, we still got almost 3 to 4 years on your contract left, or 3 and a bit years on your contract left. They can do whatever they like, really. And this is why choosing your team wisely on who's your agent matters. Do you know how much times I've seen agents lock players into these long-term deals? Now, let me give you some game. For me personally, you only sign a long-term deal when you are at the club that you wish to stay for at a long period of time, or you are a big player, a big fish in a big pond, where at that time that you don't really see yourself going anywhere else, and you need that somewhat guarantee that you're going to have those years behind you. In Isak's situation, as a potential player to have become one of the best Premier League strikers, which he's now becoming, he's not solidified it as, up there with the best yet, because I feel like he needs to do it for a longer period of time. But for what he's done, he's definitely just below it. But like when you're now where he is now, yeah, if and he gets his move to Liverpool, that's where I sign the 6-year deal. That's when I signed for Liverpool, that's the 6-year deal I signed. Because now you're a big fish in a big pond. You're able to now perform at the levels you need to. And guess what? You have that long-term contract, because you ain't looking to really go anywhere else past that. You're not. Where do you go past Liverpool? Real Madrid, Barcelona, someone like that. So when I'm a young player and I'm looking at these contracts, I'm like, yo, my career needs to have longevity. I need to look at the long term of my career. And it's crazy that a lot of people would look at that as business is business when it revolves around the club. But listen, I'm here to tell you as a player, business is business when it revolves around you too. And a player is a business. Yeah, a player is an asset. A player is all of these things. So with this situation going on, do I think Isak's wrong for not being professional about it? Yes, I do. Should he still train? Yes. But also, the club needs to be professional too and handle that situation correctly. As I said, these clubs promise you the world. These clubs will give you the contract. Like I said, when they're ready to let you go and tell you, I don't want you, I've had enough, rip out the paper, they will do so. So now it's time to get into our new segment called Free Game. And as I said at the start of the show, Free Game is all about me giving you the advice from my time at West Ham United. Listen, I was there for over 10 plus years. So when it comes to this football life and walking it out, I know a lot about it. But just before we get into all of that, listen, we have our own ebook, something that I've written from my time in West Ham's Academy, where I've given you the step-by-step blueprint to help you guys build out your own plan towards becoming a professional footballer. Whether you're laying the foundation or you're in the middle of it trying to figure it out, or you're right at the end where you're about to produce the fruit, that ebook is going to make sure that it's going to help you, give you your step-by-step guide on how to go about this football life. If you're interested in it, make sure you click the link in the bio and make sure you grab your footballer's guide now. So my free game for this episode is going to be why this is the season where there is so many opportunities for young players to get out and really make a name for themselves. And this conversation came about just simply because of Rio and Ngumoha and Max Dowman. When you look at their pre-season and what they had, the opportunities, listen, they were two players that put their name on the map. But then when you look at the rest of this season and you just look at football as a whole, where we are right now, it's the time for any young player to make their name, whether you guys are in the Premier League academies, whether you guys are, in the lower league academies, or you're even in non-league abroad, wherever you are, this is the time. And here's the reason why. Because number one, there are so many games in this season, right? Like football, the amount of games have gone up. And with that being said, the first team players are going to need rest. The second team sort of players, the ones that are on the bench, they're also going to need a rest, which means League Cups, which means FA Cups, which means other games are going to be happening. There is so much space for you guys to be able to make a name for yourself, right? On top of that, AFCON starts in December, which means all the African players are going to be gone from every level. When we're talking about these African countries, look at non-league players and withdraw them to go play in a competition too. So there are going to be absolutely free spaces for young players to be able to make their name for themselves. And not only that, you're going to be looking at the World Cup at the end of this season as well. So all these first team players are going to be looking for rest. All these first team players are going to be looking for, the recovery to be able to get their chances in these top level tournaments. As I said again, the amount of games, they're going to need that time to chill. If I'm a young player, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking to myself, this is my time. I need to take my training seriously. I need to take my routine seriously. Everything needs to be taken seriously. As I said, look at Rio, look at Max. They got their opportunity and they've taken it. And I'm telling you, when these games come up, they're going to be two players that's going to be looked at to be able to replace those spots while those players are gone. But when you look at even just non-league and you look at how the academy systems are built out now, these academy systems are so different to when I was playing. I wish I had this academy system, because when you look at it, it's all done in categories. And the lower categories, they're looking at non-league for young players. That's their system. That's how they produce players all the time, right? Like, I even think Millwall's has got loads of players from non-league as it is already. I'm talking young ones. So now when you look at that, non-league teams are now looking at that, this could be our business model. Our business model is get as young players as possible, produce them through our sort of academies in non-league, but they're under 18s or their reserve teams or their second teams, right? And then it's taking that and then it's saying, okay, we want to now sell these players to try to go to these higher leagues. If I'm a young player in non-league right now, that's what I'm looking at. When you then look at these League Ones, League Twos, so many players at Bournemouth and all these, they're looking at you to come in, right? If I'm abroad and I'm a young player out there, I'm like, the Premier League is open right now, right? As I said, Europa League Conference, Europa League, Champions League, there are so many games this season, the tournaments that's happening this season. This is the time. So here's the game. Make sure you get yourself a plan, make sure you get yourself a routine, and make sure you have a goal. Make sure that your goal is to obviously make your name for yourself this year. But most importantly, don't just look at the goal, create the systems behind to make that goal happen. Look at the calendar. Look at where those games are going to be played. Where could you fit in? Where could you not? Start having the conversations with the manager to say, hey, like, I'm looking to perform and play. As I said, non-league, they're playing in the FA Vase Cup. They're playing also in the FA Cup. When you look at the League Ones, League Twos, they're playing in the Johnson's Paint Trophy. I don't know if that's what it's called anymore. It might be changed. However, you can tell I'm getting excited about it, because I'm telling you, if I was balling again and I was young and I was 16, 17, 18, 19, just like some of you guys watching, I'm thinking to myself, this is my time. If you're still here, that means you want to take your football career seriously. And every aspiring player needs to build a plan, a blueprint. And that is why we created our Footballer's Guide for players just like you. Head to the link in the description, buy our ebook, and start taking control of your blueprint today. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. Love.